Let's begin the show by starting it. Welcome to the Sunday Movie Marathon. How are we all doing?
Not
Is
bad.
that a quote from Parks and Rec?
Yeah, I've been binging
Yeah.
that show.
Literally,
I've
that's
just
the
been
only
binging through it
reason
recently.
I guessed it. It's like Max's
Yeah.
quotes are just whatever he's talking about or has watched
Yeah.
that week.
Yeah, I literally I saw it like today even.
I need to start
I'm just going to
watching
write that down.
I'm pretty sure I said
Oh,
this
it's
on
brilliant.
a podcast ages ago that I need to start watching it, and I never did.
Well, it's on Netflix now in all its glory.
My next recommendation is the whole entirety of Parks and Rec. You got to watch it in a week.
Nice.
Honestly, with the rate I'm going, I probably will finish it in a week.
I finished
Yeah.
Friends pretty quickly.
Yeah. I think Parks and Rec is just like, it's one of those shows that it's just like so easily digestible that it's kind of dangerous.
Yeah, is it like 20-minute episodes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot that Friends was 20 minute episodes. So when I started watching it, I was just flying through them, and I think I was doing about a season every other day.
Yeah.
And before I got a new job, I think I'd done like 7 seasons easily within a week, or within a week and a half. Sorry, like something ridiculous. It was like wake up, watch Friends, fall asleep, wake up, watch Friends, repeat.
What happens in lockdown? What else can you do?
Well, I just hope that we have that momentum when episode 25 comes about. Hint, hint.
Yeah. Something special in store then.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Only 8 episodes away now.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
do you reckon,
yeah,
do you reckon
so,
we'll get it done, or do you reckon we have to start it now?
would be alright.
Wait,
I hope.
do you reckon in a week?
Surely.
Don't know. Every episode's like an hour long. There's, I think, 20 something episodes in the first season.
What? It's an hour long, is it? Episode. What? Okay.
What did you think
Ooh.
they were? You have the fucking box sets.
I mean, we'll not reveal the show yet, but I didn't think that I thought they were like half an hour, honestly. But no, I've said it
it's
now,
like-
so we're going to do it.
Yeah, it's like the typical. Yeah, so Max, do you reckon we'll get it done in a week?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but
I think
I'll try it.
You could do it if you binged like 5 episodes a day, like 4 to 5 episodes a day. You'll get it done.
Yeah. What's going to be like hard is if it's just like not good.
Yeah.
That's going to be a lot harder to watch it. But
I haven't
We'll see.
I haven't read any reviews, watched any reviews, or really heard anything about it. Which
no.
I don't know if that's good or if it's bad. But I'm guessing if they have like as many seasons as they do, it should be good. But then, like, Supernatural's pretty shit, and that's got 14 seasons. So,
Yeah. They just kept going with that one.
well, without further ado, shall we get on to the meat and potatoes of this podcast and start reviewing some fucking movies?
Let's get on to the Yorkshire
Yeah.
puddings, the pigs in the blankets, and the thick, delicious gravy.
Nice.
Who's the pigs and blankets?
Chris,
Wow,
Hell yeah.
fucking hell! He just called you a pig.
the best part of the roast.
Yeah.
You're a pig wrapped in another pig.
I think what he's saying is that my film was the best pick of the week.
I'm not saying that.
I will
Okay.
wholeheartedly say that I think my film was the best pick of this week.
Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah. We'll get to it.
Okay, so starting off with me, I picked the 1997 film Funny Games, directed by Mikhail Haneke. I am a big fan of the director. I've seen a few of his films now, and this was like meant to be one of his biggest and most well-known films. So I thought it would be a good journey to watch. It is basically a home invasion movie. 2 guys make their way into a house of a pretty well for themselves family, and then they start playing games with them, which get manipulative and violent. So what did everyone think of Funny Games?
Well, do you know what? Max, what was the film that you recommended that was completely in a different language?
Do you have a leak?
That was the one. This was a lot easier to watch than that. Like,
Well-
so I'm not saying this is a better film. I'm just saying I think I'm getting better at watching subtitled films.
Yeah, and
Nice.
Diabolique was from the 50s. There's a big jump.
Yeah, this film was originally because there's two versions of this. There's a 2007 remake, isn't there?
Yeah.
So I watched the first 10 minutes of that and then realised that I was watching the wrong movie, so I had to go back off. Then found the actual version, but there weren't any subtitles, so I was like, great. So I was just sitting there for about 5 minutes watching it without subtitles, and then I just found a copy with subtitles, which I was thankful of, because I had no fucking clue what was going on.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I liked it. I guess it was kind of bored me. I'll be honest. I didn't love it. It was just like a home invasion movie, and the thing I was sort of anticipating was something a bit more out there. Because I've heard a lot about Michael Haneke. Just he seems like a prolific director, or just very very out there. People love him. At least like in the more indie scene, I guess. I'm not too sure, but this, I understand how someone might find parts of it to divert from maybe the basic plot of a home invasion movie, but personally, I don't think it did much to subvert my expectations when it comes to the type of movie that I'm familiar with when it comes to home invasion.
The last two home invasion movies that I've watched are, is it Hush?
Yeah.
There's that one on Netflix, and then there's another one which I cannot remember for the life of me what the name was, but it's basically like a brother hires hitmen to kill his family so he gets an inheritance, and it's just the killers invading the home and then getting killed themselves. Spoiler alert for whatever, I don't even know what the movie's called. So, like, going in, like, I googled the synopsis for this movie, like I do for movies that I have no clue about, and I, like, Max, I completely did not expect it to be. It was very tamed in terms of like a home invasion movie. I mean, there wasn't really much going on with it. I did make a point about the fact that it took place in like one location, but it's a home invasion movie. Where else is it going to take place? But yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm indifferent about this movie. I was bored watching it, but I don't know. Wouldn't say it was a bad movie.
Well, you loved it, Chris, didn't you? Can you tell us like what
I
you
did.
loved about it?
There was a lot I really enjoyed about it. I actually liked how slow it was. Like, there was something about, obviously, a lot of the film's like very silent. There's like a very, very minimal amount of music in the film. And I just found something like slightly off throughout the whole film. It just was quite ominous to me, just how silent and like cold and empty it is. And
I will say, to add on to that point, that you do have a point with it, like being silent does add to the movie. It's the scene where, spoiler alert, that they tell the woman to get undressed, and they're like, yeah, tell your wife to get undressed, or we'll like just beat your kid up, essentially. And there's just like parts in there where they're just staring at each other, or like the dad just looks down and then just looks at his wife and he's like, just get undressed. And I think that just, it wasn't only awkward, but it did add just a creepy and very like menacing vibe to that scene. I really liked that scene. Like, not because you see a nude woman, because you don't, but because it was done quite well. With like obviously the silences being added and long pauses and stuff.
There's a lot that they hide in the movie. I found that quite effective. Like, they hide a lot of the violence that's going on. You hear it, but you don't see it until like maybe afterwards, and that was quite effective to let that sort of play out in your mind. Because I think when it comes to like horror, it's sort of like the mind is like a more like influential tool into whether you're gonna find something like viscerally affecting, and I think that helped a lot.
Well, they did that with Bird Box, didn't they? With the whole, they had like a design and a sketch for the creature that was supposed to be in it, but test audience just laughed at the fact that it just looked like a giant baby. They just took it out and left it to the imagination, and yeah, like you said, what you don't know scares you, the unknown scares you. So it's the whole point about like the alien from Aliens as well. Them not giving it eyes because you don't know where it's looking, what it's looking at.
Yeah.
It's just uncertainty. I don't know if I found a botched copy of this movie. Were you supposed to see or hear the kid get shot?
No, you don't
You hear
see
it, don't you?
Yeah, you hear it, but it's kind of like muffled. It's like kind of more in the background. It's not like very loud or anything.
Mine, literally, the copy that I watched on YouTube, just it was the guy making food in the kitchen. Then it just cut to the TV screen with blood on it. Was that meant to happen?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I didn't hear whatever sound effects were meant to be going on in the background. But my God, when it it's like obviously went back to the front room and like the kid had been shot, and they're like, oh, he was trying to escape, and he's like, don't be so trigger happy. I was like, fuck me, they just killed a kid in a film.
Yeah. There's a really great shot that I love where it's like the aftermath after that, where you see like the corpse on the floor, there's blood everywhere, and like the dad's on the floor and the mum's just like sat there completely paralyzed, like she can't move or anything.
She's on the sofa and she just looking down like.
Yeah.
It's hangs on
hangs on that for like 2 or 3 minutes, like something like that. It's like a long time, just hangs on that shot and nothing happens, and I found that super intense and disturbing.
Yeah, well, I think in scenes like that, I think the purpose behind them is it gives you time to put yourself into that position. Because like with like most movies nowadays, we'd say the movies that are like where it's just something happens and it's always go go go. You don't really have time to visualize yourself in the scene. I think when something traumatic like that happens and you're just lingering on the shot for so long, I think, again, like Max said, your imagination is a powerful thing, and maybe you put yourself into that scenario and maybe you reminisce with the character, maybe it changes the scene entirely for you. But most people would find this boring. It's like, why would I just watch a woman sitting down for 3 minutes? And it just, you're missing the whole point of why it's done.
Yeah,
I like that you didn't like. She was talking to the dad as well, but you couldn't see him because he was like lying behind a sofa because his like leg is broken. So in that moment, I was like, well, we don't actually know if maybe he's dead too, and she's just like talking to someone who's like not conscious or like not alive anymore. So I did like that thing, as well.
Well, yeah, this is the thing. It's just like there's just so much that you don't know what's going on. That, yeah, she could just be having like a psychotic break, and that's one avenue to go down. But
here's the problem I have with this movie. I don't really care about the family. I don't get a lot. I think all the acting is like very good, but I never got a chance to relate to the family. I don't know like what their deal was. I don't like care about, like, they didn't really evoke much personality for me. It was just like you're supposed to feel bad about this family getting into the situation because it's sad when people are tortured and murdered, but it doesn't have that emotional backing for me. It's just like you're going to watch this family that you don't know subjected to a bunch of like horrible shit, and you're supposed to care when they die. I didn't.
I don't know. Like Chris said about some of the long shots that were in this movie and how you could almost have the time to picture yourself in these scenes. Maybe you're not supposed to really care about what the family is going through. It's more of the fact that the film's designed to help put you in that situation, so therefore you're experiencing it in a scenario where it's happened to you rather than the family. Like, I gave a shit when the fucking dog died. I really didn't care about anything else. Like, like, when the dad's shot in the head, I was like, oh, fair enough.
If the point of the movie was to try and put me in the position of these characters, then I'm sorry, but it did a poor job of it. I just didn't care enough for the situation that they were in. I thought it was very just like, I've seen this a million times in a million other movies, and I just didn't care. And like the dog dying, it was like, oh yeah, you see a dog in the first place. I know this movie from the get-go is not like a happy movie. I know some shit's gonna go down. So of course the dog's gonna die, and then it dies, and I'm like, oh, that's so original. They killed the dog. I don't care.
I'm slightly confused on some of the things that happened in this film as well. there was so much foreshadowing that I noticed about this movie. I was like, when he picks up the golf club and was like, "Can I go test it out?" I was like, "Yeah, he's gonna go kill the dog." The knife falling from under the on the boat. I was like, "Well, that's gonna come back later." But then again, I don't know if the movie cut out early for me. So the way that these two guys get into this home to obviously harass the occupants of it, they go in and ask for some eggs, and then it just like goes from there on. And at the end of the movie,
escalates. Yeah.
They go to the neighbours and do the exact same thing. Now, they take the mum hostage at the end after killing the two people. She's on the boat, picks up the knife, and then dives in the water, but you never see her again.
Yeah, because she's bound. Like, she can't swim. She's going to drown.
Right, so
That's
I
just
thought
how it goes.
she was going to cut herself free and then kill him because it foreshadowed the knife being used earlier, but then nothing happened.
I actually kind of like that, to be honest. Like, they do set this up, but it's like, the whole thing about it is almost like, you can't stop this from happening. It's going to happen. Like, this shit happens. And, like, the violence that... You can't stop the violence from happening. These people are sort of just sat there dealing with it, and that's how it goes in some cases. So I do like that, but at the same time, it's I wouldn't say it was anticlimactic, honestly. I kind of like there's a lot of fourth wall breaking in this, but like the character of Paul, who I think was probably the best character in it, honestly, the skinny guy.
Yeah.
Who sort of constantly like looking to the camera and like addressing us. Sometimes it grated on me a little bit, but most of the time I found it quite enjoyable. It was just yeah. So I do sort of get that the knife on the boat mainly was like not paid off, but it was sort of that's the point.
Yeah, right. What did you guys think of the home invaders? Because unlike most other traditional home invasion films, like Strangers, Hush, all of that sort of shit, these guys weren't, I wouldn't say necessarily violent, and they were more psychopathic than sociopathic. It's not like they got the kicks out of murdering them. It was just like the simple stuff of like him, like them, like insisting on giving them the eggs, and they're doing this because they haven't been given these eggs, or telling the mum to undress and then to get dressed again.
Yeah, I enjoyed like the way that they sort of pushed themselves into the home. I think it's like I've got like a fear of home invasion, honestly. I've had like nightmares about it. And it's like these kinds of interactions where they're sort of like being faux friendly, where they're just like, "Oh yeah, can I borrow some eggs?" And then like, "Oh, I just smashed the eggs." And then it just like keeps escalating where they're not being like really evil, but it's like they're just making you uncomfortable, and it's the kind of thing. It's like gaslighting in a way. It's like you're being subjected to these people that you think are very, very uncomfortable, but you can't get away from it because of like social boundaries and like social expectations. Like you can't just say "fuck you" to these guys who aren't on the surface doing anything like abhorrent, but you know it just makes you uncomfortable. That's why I like the scene where she's trying to get them to leave, and then the dad comes in. She's like, "You got to get these guys to leave." I was kind of like upset with the dad. It's just like, why didn't you just get them to fuck off immediately? Like if my wife was like just in our like home that we've rented out for like a holiday, and then these two people that I've never met have come into this house, and she's telling me that they need to leave, I wouldn't be like, "Oh, why? They're not doing anything wrong." It's like, no, man, they're there. Just get them out.
I like that those two guys, it's for most of the film it's more about like psychological torture than it is actual like violent torture, and I found that quite interesting, and a lot of it was quite disturbing and creepy at times.
Well, yeah, imagine having your kid's head blown off sat behind you. Like, that'd definitely fucking scar you, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It's just like all these things that they do to try and escape it, where you're like rooting for them, I guess, on like a human level. Just be like, yeah, come on, they can do it, and like get out. Like when she shot the guy, she got the gun and shot the guy, I like audibly stood up and cheered. That's how like great that moment was. But then it like the fourth wall breaks, and then Paul like picks up a remote and he says, nah, man, this isn't happening. And he rewinds it, and then he grabs the gun before she can shoot his friend. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like, this is like, it was like the scene from Infinity War. It's like, oh man, I love that. But at the same time, it pissed me off so much. I was so angry. I just audibly said "fuck you" to the film. I was just sighed. I was like, oh man.
I think that was kind of the point. Like, he wanted to like give you some relief and then make you like pull the rug out from under you and say, nah, this isn't what we're doing. I really loved that scene where he turns the film back. I thought it was really inventive and I found it quite funny. I liked all of the fourth wall breaking throughout. There was something about it just made the characters seem a little bit more psychotic, and I found it a lot more interesting. It was something that really engaged me throughout the film. It was I actually kind of wish they did it a little bit more, but but if they did, maybe it would have not been as like fresh and funny.
Chris, how many times have you watched this movie?
Just the once. This is my first time.
And you loved it?
Yeah.
Do you reckon you'll watch it again?
Yeah, I think I will. I want to watch the remake as well because it's the same director again. But it's like a shot-for-shot remake just with an American cast. But a lot of people seem to like it more than the original.
Yeah, well, I probably would, in all fairness.
Oh, the part I said "fuck you" to the screen at was not the part that I said. It was when Paul looks directly at the screen and he's like, it's like an hour and a half in, and he says, "We're not up to feature film length yet. Is that enough? But you wanted a real ending with plausible plot development, don't you?" I was just like, oh, shut up, man. Because, like, first thing first, all right, at that point, it was feature length. It was. Like, shut up. I was so mad.
See, not only is Max going to be very hesitant when someone comes around that he doesn't know and asks to borrow eggs, but you've also pissed him off now, Chris. Look what your movie's doing to us.
Yeah. I really like the visual look of the film. It's all of Michael Haneke's films look quite similar. They're like, all the colouring and lighting is very natural looking, and I felt like that added this really real quality to it. Everything just looked kind of real, which I really appreciated.
Yeah. It looked good. It's just a shame that the story itself did not back that up, at least for me. Because, like, when I'm watching these home invasion movies, I think a lot of them are so dumb, you sort of sit there and you wonder to yourself, how would I get out of this situation? And I'm just, like, going through my head all the ways that they fucked up, and be like, oh, well, they should have done this, and they should have done that. Like, the kid gets out at one point, he, like, tries to climb over the gate when there's, like, it's just, like, barred off by a hedge. I'm like, just run through the hedge, man. Like, what is this? Just, he has to, like, wade through the lake instead. I'm like, you didn't need to do that. There's just all these things that they could have done. And I guess, like, when you're in the moment, maybe you don't think of these things, but when you're
I do that with
bored
with a lot
by
of
a
movies.
movie, you just when you're bored by a movie, you do, like, nitpick these things, and maybe it's not the fault of the movie, but it's how the mind wanders.
Well, it's inevitably going to happen in any movie. If you give someone enough time, they probably will just start nitpicking, especially if you're bored of a movie or it's not got your interest. Like this film had for both me and you. I didn't get to the point where I was nitpicking it, but I have done in previous films. And yes, the exact same. Like, the moment you start to think, well, why didn't you just do this instead? Any film is going to get ruined at that point. Any film.
Yeah. I was interested enough, I guess. Just like after the kid died, I sort of just dropped off, though, because nothing really significant happened, I guess. It was just like,
Max at that point,
it's just
like
like
the
they're
film
trying to
hit
get
its crescendo.
Yeah. And then, like, they're spending all this time, they're like, we can't waste any time. We gotta get out of here. And I'm like, waste what time? Your son's dead. Like, what do you mean waste time? There's like a great moment when, like, it's like this sort of twist where the mother's trying to get help. She's like out on the road, and then they come back. That was like chilling. I was like, oh god, it's gonna do this. They like come back. That was like the golf ball rolls on the floorboards, makes this sound, and then you're like, oh god, they're back. And then they come back. It's like, oh, we're gonna do this again. Now they're definitely gonna die.
I loved that golf ball bit. It was so eerie.
Foreshadowing, mate. Foreshadowing.
Yeah, I was going to say that was something that they kind of set up earlier in the film as well.
Does anyone else have anything more to add?
What did everyone think of the really loud punk song that played like 3 times in the film? It sounded
Do you
like
know what?
Passenger of Shit.
At the beginning of the film, it was when it first played, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I was just like listening. It was like very calm music. It was a one shot as well, like just following the cutter. Well, not one shot, but a long shot on following the cutter. I just found it really funny that this like heavy punk fucking metal song's playing, but like in the film, these guys are just like singing along to classic music, and it's just really strange to see this like punk graffiti text come up behind this like metal song, and there's just this like typical nuclear family in the car just like dancing to it.
Yeah, it was fun. I like that.
Yeah, that's where the movie dropped off for me.
I thought there was like something wrong with the version on YouTube. At first I was like, is this supposed to be in the film or has this just been randomly put in?
It was pretty funny.
I think it sort of fit though. It plays like at the end as well, just like this freeze frame on Paul, because they like at the end, once they push the mum into the lake, they go to another house, and it's like, oh, they're just gonna do it again to this other family. It's like this sort of cycle with them, and it just like it pauses on Paul's face, and it's just like this metal soundtrack playing, and it stays on his face for like a minute. I'm like, what? And then it ends, and I'm just like, probably didn't need to show it for that long.
Do you know what I've just thought of though, right? So you know when the guy comes over and asks for eggs, because one of his friends is like making something and they've ran out of eggs.
Yeah.
Well, he does the exact same thing to the next person that I'm guessing the film is hinting at they're going to murder next. So does that mean at the beginning of the film he has already murdered the other family and he's come over to say so-and-so needs to borrow your eggs? Because he murders that family and does the exact same thing.
I think that's the implication.
Yeah, he does say at one point that they're not the first family that they've done that to.
A lot to read between the lines in these films.
Yeah. Has anyone else got anything?
I haven't, no.
I don't think so. No.
Let's get into the rating.
Right, we'll do this one
Let's
at
do
golf
it.
balls.
Nice. Yeah, I really loved this film. I wouldn't say it's my favourite Haneke film of the ones I've seen. That will probably go to the film Amour, which is like the most depressing film I've ever watched. So that's a fun time that I recommend. Yeah, I think it's just a really well-made movie. I love Haneke's... The film's basically just a statement on like violence in films, and I think he gets that across really well. And yeah, I wouldn't say I enjoyed the film, but I don't think that was the point. I found it very disturbing, well-made film. I'm going to give it 9 golf balls out of 10.
Fucking hell.
Very nice.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I like this movie. I didn't really have any emotional investment in it. So, like, when you're just sitting there with, like, you're not, like, emoting in any way, what can you really do? It's going to affect different people in different ways. I do think the filmmaking was very good. The acting was good. I just didn't really connect with the characters themselves. Apart from, like, maybe Paul, who was probably the best one there. Yeah, I don't know if I'd watch it again. Honestly, maybe I will in like a few years, but not anytime soon. It's not very creepy. It's not very, like, honestly, it's not very entertaining for me. But I appreciate, like, more, like, the technical aspect and what it's trying to say thematically. So I'm going to give it 6 golf balls out of 10.
I will carry on Max's point where he said he doesn't know if he'll watch this film again. I will not watch this film again. It like Max, I wasn't invested in the characters. The film wasn't interesting. I did, however, it is a good film. I just didn't like it. But I will say that it is one of the more refreshing home invasion movies that I have watched where, as we spoke about, a lot of them follow the same trope and they're so focused on violence to scare and shock the audience, where as we spoke about and as Chris has brought up, this one is a lot more psychological in terms of like just how some scenes are shot, what happens during the movie, and I think that is very different to what is out there. I just didn't find the movie interesting, which is why I wouldn't watch it again. But it is a good movie if you're gonna watch it. So I'm gonna give this a 5 golf balls out of 5 out of 10.
Nice.
Just nearly gave it a perfect score.
5 out of 5 out of 10.
So,
Okay,
one movie down.
we got
We're on to
one movie down.
Packers now.
We're on to mine. I recommended the 2008 movie directed by Darren Lynn Bousman called Repo, the genetic opera. This gothic rock musical set in the mid-21st century, I'd say. Mass organ failure leads to the rise of the company GeneCo, who provide high-priced organ transplants. Those who cannot pay are hunted down by mercenary repo men who repossess the organs. Amid this dystopian world, Shiloh, a young teenager, is seeking information on her family's past and a cure for the disease that she is afflicted with. What do we think of this?
Do you know what?
Rock
There's something
musical.
terrifying about, like, fuck me, I sometimes get a bit hesitant on whether I'm going to make a car insurance payment and they're going to repossess my car. Like, let alone having, like, there's a scene in the movie where the guy kills someone and just rips out his spine and then delivers it to the guy that obviously owns GeneCo, the company. I'm like, that's just fucking horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
But like
Yeah,
I said,
a lot of gore.
like I said in the chat to you guys, this genuinely felt like I was watching a feature-length Evanescence music video.
Yeah.
This was more fitting to be a music video for an album than what Chris recommended on the Alien marathon that we did.
The Daft Punk film.
Yeah, this made more sense, and this wasn't a music video for any Evanescence songs, but it just looked like it. And I don't know who recommended you this film, Max, but it's like, when you, like, I thought this film was from the 1997. I thought this was Chris's recommendation era. I knew it was your recommendation, but I thought this was the film that was based in 1997. I thought it was going to be about, like, the opera, because I just read the last word. And then when I started watching this film, I was like, have I got the right fucking thing? I had to check, and I was like, what on earth is this film?
Yeah, you got the genetic opera, and they show up at the very end.
Oh yeah, no, of course. But like I watch this film, and then I compare it to things like Mamma Mia or Rocket Man and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, I understand it's a musical, but you can have a conversation where you don't sing, right? At least in like films like Mamma Mia, which is a musical, they set it up, and then it's done, and you have a bit of a good time, and then you relax till the next song. This one, they're like midway through a conversation, like the dad and the daughter are talking, and then she just starts singing to him. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? This reminds me of the episode of Scrubs, where the woman has a head injury and everyone just starts singing to her, and I'm like, my god, just chill.
What a great episode.
That was a really
That's
good
how
episode.
musicals are, though. That's like how some musicals are. Like, literally everything is singing.
Yeah, no, I get that, but they're like midway through conversation and then they start singing and then they stop. This was exactly like Greenland when Gerard Butler just kept flicking between two accents. Have any of you watched that yet?
Not yet.
No.
He starts the movie off American and then goes Scottish, and I'm like, why has he changed? And then it's like, in the film, he's meant to be Scottish. I'm like, why was he talking American then? You wouldn't gain an American accent. You would have a like mishmash of both. But that's not the movie we're talking about.
If only
it
it
is not.
was. I hated this movie. I really, really did not like it at all.
I can agree with that.
I didn't have a good time at all. This is quite possibly the most painful film we've watched on the podcast for me.
So you,
Aw,
Chris,
really?
you know you said about there's the scene in Good. Is it what's that film called? Good Laughs.
Funny Games.
Funny Games. Sorry.
Good laughs.
In Funny Games, where the mum's just like after her kid's just been shot and she's just sitting there for 3 minutes, traumatized. that was me throughout this whole entire film.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Like,
Massive spoiler for Funny Games there.
I was watching this, and like, you know when you're playing like a game, and you know like how Cyberpunk 2077 is, where the game just crashes and it doesn't know what it's doing. That was my brain watching this movie. I didn't know what was happening, and I didn't know how to process it. Like, I don't like this type of music anyway, so to watch a musical on music that you don't really listen to, not really a good start.
Yeah, I'd completely agree. All the music's just like really cringy, like nu metal. Like, it all does sound like Evanescence, but somehow worse. Like, and it's not even that the style of music is something I don't like. Obviously, that doesn't help. But the biggest problem with the music is it's just shit. Like, the lyrics are laughably bad at points. The instrumentation stuff's not very good either. There's so many songs and none of them really stand out at all. All of them are so forgettable, and like none of the performers seem to want to be there either. And all the performances, I just feel like most of them are really bad. They got Paul Sorvino, who's the head of Genco, who plays Paulie in Goodfellas. He looks like he's like trying to work out where his career went wrong for him to end up there.
Wait, that's the same guy from Goodfellas?
Yeah, he plays Paulie.
Fucking hell. I've just realised I haven't got my camera on.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
There's Anthony Stewart Head from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, who
Merlin.
Yeah, and one episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah,
mate, this film was
He's got a really good singing voice, but his voice doesn't fit this sort of music. So a lot of it just sounded really weird, and also a lot of his performances were really badly auto-tuned, and it just sounded so artificial. And also when he's like in the few scenes where he speaks, his like American accent is super terrible, and it keeps dropping out and going back to his normal British accent.
Mate, I think a lot of the people in this film can sing. Like, there are some really good, like, vocalists in this film. Not musicians, Max. Vocalists. And, but like you said, like, the music was just shit. There's this scene where, the dad comes home and that woman, with the weird eyes, is just, like, come round their house. And she's in her bedroom kicking off. And there's like the live band and she's singing into this microphone in her bed. Like, that whole entire like scene, I was like, can I just fast forward this? It was so cringy. The lyrics were shit. Like, it was just like the guy in the background playing the guitar was just like, no, just this whole fucking, this vibe is not good.
Yeah, that's one of the only songs I noted down, and I just put, this song's fucking cringe.
Okay, what I'm hearing, guys,
Max looks defeated.
Is that you didn't like this movie. I'm kind of upset by that.
Max,
but
this was literally how I felt, like, for the first 10 episodes where I'd just recommend shit, and we'd be like, what are the ratings? It'd be like, 1.
Okay. Here's the thing. This movie is god-awful. This movie is terrible. It sucks. It sucked ass. I knew that going into it. I've seen this movie 3 times. Of course I knew it sucked. Of course I knew it was terrible.
Wait,
I recommended it because I wanted you guys to have a horrible time.
Yeah,
okay?
but if
I've been recommending too many good movies lately. I just wanted to bring it down a little bit. Just to level out my standing.
If you knew this movie was god-awful, why is this your 3rd time watching it?
Well, that's a good question, and I'll tell you.
I understand.
Every
One
time
you watched the movie, it was shit. The second time, you recommend it despite us all. Where was the second time?
Here's the thing. I watched this movie for the first time a couple of years ago. I'm not going to lie, I was quite drunk. And in my inebriation, I suppose I just found like part of it to be maybe not good, but memorable. I'm like, wow, this movie is really sticking in my mind. Better get the DVD, watch it again. I watched it again.
No. Oh my.
Sometime later. Oh man.
Well, that wasn't the fucking DVD. to watch it
I was
again.
like, man, that wasn't nearly as good as I remember it being when I was drunk. And the reason I recommended it was just because I don't want to be alone and being the only one who's watched this terrible movie.
Yeah, I understand.
And I own the DVD. I might as well get some use out of it, you know. Look,
but I'm confused.
I agree with literally everything that you guys have said. Okay, this movie sucks. Okay, it's terrible. The acting is horrible. The actors, like the singing sometimes could be good. From like, I liked Anthony Stewart Head. He seemed like he was having fun, but like,
Yeah, he did. To be fair.
fucking hated everyone else. Like the Rotti Largo, the guy from Paulie from Goodfellas. I thought he did a lot of like operatic singing, and I was like, okay, you have a good voice, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work for this movie. And like, just all throughout it, I'm like, I remember the music being a little bit better than this. The songs sucked, man. The songs are so bad. The composition was so boring and bland. It was just like, Chris compared it to like new metal music, but it's like, yeah, it is that, but it's like if somebody didn't give two shits about writing a new metal song.
Yeah, just like the same two chords for an hour and a half.
Yeah, I think that's the issue because the songs are so similar. But did anyone else, right? Who was the guy with the long hair that like took the little girl to like an alleyway where she like met all of his mates and they're on about this like cream and shit that's like, oh, you inject it into the fuck, what was the word that he used?
Zydrate?
No.
The zydrate?
Yeah, zydrate into the body or whatever fucking word that he used. Did anyone else, like, he reminded me so much of the guy that trained Arya in Game of Thrones.
The,
No-faced man.
Oh, right, him. Yeah.
Yeah, just a more gothic version.
He was like, kind of liked his vibe, honestly. I didn't mind him. He was very over the top and just weird. His name is Terrence Terrence Zdunik.
Yeah.
He was just called Grave Robber. And
he was the standout.
He was so over the top.
Yeah.
He was so over the top and goofy. It's like he's robbing these graves to like steal Zydrate from, which is like a potent addictive painkiller from all these corpses, and then like he's trying to like hide from the police who are like hunting him down, and then like because he's singing it, he has to just scream the word graves as he's singing his song, trying not to get caught. And I'm like, why did you do that?
He does it twice.
Yeah, he does it twice,
and she gets caught. Like he really
he like grabs a corpse. He grabs a corpse out of a crypt, and then he like he smashes it into some stones to get into another place. I'm like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah, and there's just like 1,000,001 bodies underneath their house. That scene for me, especially at the opening of a movie, or like fairly in the beginning of the movie, he's just like shouting graves, and she's like, no, you're gonna get us caught. I'm like, what the fuck have you done, and what's going on? This movie was fucking awful. Like, I just, honestly, I don't think I've watched. I'd much rather watch Goodnight Mr. Tom 10 times than watching this once on time 10 speed. Now, that's not saying Goodnight Mr. Tom's a bad movie. That's saying I'd much rather waste, like, 20 hours of my life watching that film than watching an hour of this, because it's that bad.
You do that a lot, man. Like, just like, here's this random movie I'll pull out of like the depths of my memory to compare to this. There's nothing to do with it. Goodnight, Mr. Tom. I'd rather watch that 1,000,000 times. Yeah.
They couldn't be further apart. Like, that's the point.
Yeah.
It's not the only time you've referenced that film either.
No, it's not.
Maybe you should recommend it one of these days.
Yeah, maybe I will. Maybe we'll do like an episode where it's like 90s and below, and I'll recommend Goodnight Mr. Tom. Max can have a hard on over that episode. Oh, my 90s movies. You can recommend another fucking Forbidden Planet.
There've been a lot of sets for this movie.
No,
it's like,
this isn't the worst movie I've ever seen. Forbidden Planet is the worst movie I've ever seen.
They built a lot of sets for this movie. It's like, I think they like shot it all in one studio, and it does feel like that because it's all very cramped together.
Yeah.
A lot of narrow spaces, and like the rest of it, they just stitched together with just really terrible CG modeling. Like when they're like panning over like the city at the beginning, it looks awful. It looks so bad.
I watched that scene, and there's a scene in Blade Runner, the original, where it's just a still frame, and I don't know if it's like just done like computerized. You know, at the beginning of the film where it's like I can't describe it. The beginning of Blade Runner, where it's just like the long shot of the tower, and then there's like a landing platform, and it's all these cars driving along. I watched that, right, and I was like, that was a fucking better establishing shot of a city, and that film was made decades before this movie, and it was so much better than this shit.
Yeah, I don't know. I assumed they were probably going for like a cartoony, like over the top style in that CGI. Like I think it was supposed to look a bit cheesy and camp, but it still doesn't work. It still looks awful.
Yeah, well, cheesy and camp is what I'd say is in like a fucking Leprechaun movie or like a fucking Jason X. That sort of like cheesy and camp, or like if Friday the Nightmare on Elm Street. Like that was just. They're good. This was just shit.
Well, there's parts of this movie that are like, they act as like exposition and backstory for different characters. Fucking hate it. It's just like, and now we'll go on to the backstory of this character and then this character, and it's all done in this like animated comic book looking style. And it's just like, I think the overall look of the movie was trying to emulate that in a type of way, but it does not work at all. I think there's it looks horrible, okay? Like, all of it looks horrible. There's, like, all the sets are, like, disgusting to look at. All these walls with, like, brown, black smears all over it. And it's like, that's sort of what they're going for. They're trying to lean more into the gothic side of it. But it looks like shit.
Like, yeah, honestly. Like, the Resident Evil movies are fucking awful in terms of, like, their CGI and their acting and their plot. And even the worst of them is probably better than this.
Yeah. Every single shot in the film looks like super smudged. Like it literally looks like someone had smudged over the camera. I assume it was like to give it like almost like a dreamlike sort of quality, but it just doesn't work at all. It literally just looks like the camera's constantly out of focus.
I remember like in 2011, maybe 2010, I recorded a free running video with do you remember those flip USB cameras?
Yeah, I had one for years.
Yeah, man. So I recorded a whole free running video in a day, and I accidentally put a thumb smudge over the screen on like most of the shots. Yeah, probably still better than that.
Going back to the comic book stuff that Max was talking about, I felt like that was like kind of cool at first, like when the film started off like that, but like it's just like 5-10 minutes of exposition, and it just goes on for way too long. Like it's stuff that they easily could have just explained in the film, and then after that there's just lots of like backstory and stuff that doesn't need to be explained or delved into. Like it's stuff that maybe you could release as like its own standalone short film or comic or something just for like the die-hard fans, but none of it's like important information that you need to understand what's going on.
Well, it's also trying to be part, I don't know if you guys know this, it's also trying to be part of like a trilogy.
Yeah.
They're like setting up things for like other stuff, and it doesn't work, because it's like, well, I would rather just watch a movie that's like contained and knows what it is and tries to be its own thing, other than just like something that, like I heard a lot about like the Mummy, the new Mummy movie trying to do that, and it didn't work. And that's sort of the vibe I got from this, especially towards the end. There are parts of the world and like the world building that I actually don't mind, but I think it would just work in a better movie. It does not work in this like surgery being a fashion statement. Like I like that. It's like a commentary on like the entertainment industry or like the fashion industry, but it's just not done well.
I think you just dug way too deep, to be fair, Max. I just think they tried to make a movie and it just really fucking failed.
But I think there are ideas here that just don't come together.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like I think the idea of like the actual Repo Man like taking like organs and stuff away if you can't pay it, I think that's a really great idea, and it could have been handled well. if there was like some actual talent behind it. And I kind of do like the universe that they create in a way, like just how like dystopian, industrial, and like almost steampunk it is. Like it kind of reminds me a little bit of the BioShock games. But again, it's something that could have been handled a lot better if there was maybe a different director and writer behind the film.
Yeah, and like put more effort into the songs. If you're gonna make a musical, don't make every song the same.
Yeah.
Bullshit, bad lyric, flat-toned, basic song.
A lot of the songs didn't rhyme at all, and like they were completely out of time. And sometimes people didn't even sing; they just spoke the words.
Mate, that's the word anatomy I was trying to think of. He's fucking rhyming anatomy with anatomy.
Yeah,
it's
my favorite line out of any of the songs was "Ashes, dust, my children were robust." I don't know what that meant. I just found it really funny.
I can't remember any of the lyrics for any of these songs, and I can't tell you. Like, this is the thing, right? Because they would go from talking and then mid-sentence they'd go to singing, although it was a musical, the songs did not differentiate from each other whatsoever, because there was no break in between them. It was a little bit of talking, singing, a little bit of talking, singing. It's like, in other musicals, they do the whole show, the musical, the song, and then it gets back to the story, and then the song enhances that. This, it was just speak a little bit, sing a little bit, speak a little bit, sing a little bit, speak a little bit, sing a little bit, and it's like, what the fuck is going on?
Even if you do want to do that, like, it can work well if the songs are good. Like, if you have the good songs, you can have that literally as like the only thing in the film without like actual speaking between them. But none of the songs are good. They all just sound the exact same. There was like one song I noticed that sounded a little bit different, which like kind of just sounded like it was ripping off some of the songs from Nightmare Before Christmas, like that jazzy musical theatre stuff with like a gothic sort of edge. But the rest of it is just all the exact same thing.
There's like a part where the two sons of Rotti Largo, who's the CEO of Jinko, are like singing to each other, I guess. And like there's like Luigi, who's like this arrogant prick, and then there's Pavi, who's like got a different face sewn onto his face. And like Luigi's like just being like, I'm the smartest and the toughest. I will find a hole and fuck it. It's like, oh, fucking
yeah. And then he says, if there isn't one, I'll make one or something.
Yeah. And then he just like, he goes, fuck it. He just like gets someone and just kills them just right then and there, just because.
Yeah, he's like, he's so over the top and like weird. It's like a character from fucking Lazy Town or something. It's like basically Robbie Rotten.
He was way too much. He was too much for me. Too big of a person, as was Pavi. I just hated like his fucking face and his like voice. I hated it. He's like got this really high pitched tone to his voice. I just hate it. Very over the top with everything. Oh, it was just horrible to listen to.
Anything more to add, lads?
Sure. Did you like the part where Blind Mags, she's like Shiloh's godmother or something? She like goes up to the house and then like she like gets let in. She's like, Shiloh, I'm your godmother or something, and then like she like projects like a video out of her eyes to show to Shiloh, and she's just like, singing along with the song that's also being projected out of her eyes. I don't know where the audio is coming. What, her ears? I don't know how this is happening. It was so stupid, but really funny.
That scene was just weird. She's like, let me in. No. And then she runs downstairs, opens the door, and then runs back upstairs.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. And it's like, I don't know. Fuck me. Honestly, this film just has melted my brain. I don't even know how to talk about it. No. I don't know what to comment on other than what I already have. It's what fucking story plot? What acting?
I have no clue.
Do we comment on the acting, or do we comment on their performance? Because a musician doesn't act.
Well, it's acting, isn't it?
Is it though?
But it's also
they're singing constantly.
Yeah, of course it is. They're playing characters,
right? So
it's not like they get up onto a stage and they just sing.
Well,
like, there's like as bad as it is, there is a story going on.
So
it's just not good.
Would you class David Bowie live performance as him acting then? Because he took on personas.
I would.
Well, fuck you then. All right. Well, their acting was shit. There we go.
Of course it was.
It was shit.
How do we like Paris Hilton? All right, there's the elephant in the room. I put it out there. Paris Hilton is in this movie. She put up a lot of money to make this film.
Wait, was she?
It was going to go under. Yeah.
I kept forgetting
this movie was going to
in
go under, and she was like, I've got to get this movie made. Okay, I'm not going to compromise on your dream, Darren Lynn Postman. I'm going to put up the money.
Who did she
to
play?
Get this movie made. Played Amber, the daughter of Rotti Largo.
What, the one that has just constant plastic surgery?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realise. The last time I saw, what's her name again?
Paris Hilton.
The last time I saw Paris Hilton in any show of any kind, it was when a gay man jumped on her head and she went all the way up his ass. That was South Park, by the way. And then she met a magical rat that showed her the way out.
Hell yeah.
But she's just so terrible in this movie. She's like a standout as well. But just because, she's one of the only women in it, I guess. But it's just she's so bad in this movie, overly over the top and sexual, and just everything she does. It's just horrible to look at.
She won a Razzie for performance in it.
Oh man!
I mean, there's the scene that's just where the guy is injecting her when he's singing about this addictive painkiller, and he's like, yeah, she's addicted to it because of all the surgery she has. And then she just leans up against the wall, and he props her leg up and just gets as close to her vag as possible and just injects this into it. I'm like, stop trying so hard to just be edgy. Just fucking inject it in her arm.
That was my favourite song in the movie. I don't know if you guys have a favourite song. Zydrate Anatomy, which was that scene. That's my favourite song. It's just so lame. It's so stupid and lame, but I kind of like it.
I can't distinguish any of the songs from each other because they're all the exact same.
This is what I mean. It just feels like it was one long song. If they made a soundtrack for this movie, I couldn't tell you where one song would start and another would end. I couldn't tell you what the track names would be.
It's all on Spotify.
Yeah, it is.
Is it actually? Well,
yeah. I went on to our playlist we've got, and Max added one of the songs.
Yeah. It was that one, Zydrate Anatomy. That's my favourite
song. Fair enough. That's
yeah.
nowhere near as bad as Chris adding the whole entirety of the discography of Anal Cunt to a playlist.
Yeah.
And then
we've got the entire discography of Scatman John on our playlist.
That video you sent the other day, Scatman John at 50%, or was it 25%?
25%.
Horrified. Get bit. Oh, honestly, it's just... I'd much rather watch that than watch this film.
Yeah, so would I.
I think Chris brought this up. I do hate that 17 song that Shiloh sings in her bedroom, with just everything turns into
me.
This, oh yeah, it's just this emo shit, and she's just running around her bedroom saying fuck you to her dad, just pulling her middle fingers up at him, and he's just trying to keep her safe. I guess he's oh, a teenager, I can't take it when they're rebellious. And it's one of the lyrics to that song was Dad, I hate you, go and die. I'm oh god, oh shut up, please shut up.
Also, for some reason during that scene, Joan Jett, the musician, was just playing guitar in the background.
Yeah, that was really weird.
I don't know why she was there. She was just standing there. Had to look it up because I was surely Joan Jett isn't in this film. But yeah, she was there.
Oh, so lame. You guys when Blind Mags was doing her performance at the end? She was because she was owned by Jinko because they did her eyes. And then she's I will not be owned by Jinko anymore. And she stabs her own eyes out with her nails. And then she falls off of the strings that are suspending her. And she just gets impaled on this fence below. Jesus Christ. What the hell is happening?
I guess she's right. Jinko aren't owning her anymore because she's dead.
Yeah. They just wanted to be as gruesome as possible. I think that's Darren Lynn Bousman's thing. I mean, he did some of the Saw movies, so I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah,
but it's so lame.
When this was loading up on Prime, which I think I'm going to start a petition to get this movie taken off Prime. There was as soon as like the Lucasfilms logo came up, I was like, all right, I know what we're in for.
Yeah.
Lionsgate, you mean?
That's the one, Lionsgate.
Lucasfilm.
I said it.
Not them.
When the logo came up and I was watching the film, I went, "This is Lionsgate." Oh no, Lucasfilms, and now I've just done the complete opposite.
Yeah.
I think after like the hour point in this film, my brain went into shock and it just completely shut off. I don't really remember anything that happened after that.
Does that mean we can just go straight to the ratings? Please.
Fine. I can see we don't want to talk about this movie anymore.
No.
Matt,
One thing
Chris, do
I
not
will
say
say-
one more thing, please.
It's not
Go ahead,
actually.
Chris.
It's not like anything about the film. It's like what after the film came out. It was like a massive financial failure. It cost them $8.5 million to make, and it only
Mhm.
grossed $180,000.
Oh my god, that is
Jesus.
fucking horrid.
That's not even like just in America. That's worldwide as
Oh.
well.
What? Not just opening weekend, the whole entirety of its lifespan in cinemas.
Yeah, the whole entirety of its lifespan. I think it was only in cinemas for like a month or two, to be fair.
Oh, Jesus.
But now it's got a massive cult following, and people seem to love it for some reason.
Max, who
Yeah.
showed you this?
Just some like old friends, I guess. That I
Well,
knew
you said
from
they
like
weren't
friends of
friends.
friends. They were like friends of friends, you know?
Well, you need
When
to.
you're just like at like a party and they're like, let's put this movie on.
Do you know what type of people I assume would like this movie? You know, there's that video going around of those goths dancing underneath the bridge that people have put Thomas the Tank Engine over them.
Yeah. 90% of everyone who goes to Delight every week.
Yeah, I'm surprised
Yeah.
none of this playlist has started playing in Delight Night, to be fair. Or it has, but it's instantly come on. We've just shut down and ignored it.
Yeah.
It's definitely a niche movie for a certain type of person. Maybe I was hoping that one of you guys would be that type of person, just
Max,
love it, and then we'd have like
you
this
said
big debate.
at the beginning
but-
of this review that you knew it sucked and you wanted to put us through it. Don't give us the bullshit that you hoped one of us would like it. You wanted us to suffer.
Well, it would have been interesting. It surely would have been interesting
Could
if
you
one of you had loved
imagine?
it.
Could you
you know?
imagine if someone like me or Chris was like, "Mate, this film was fucking incredible. This film was so good."
Well, it's really divisive. Like on Letterboxd, there's not like a singular like range of like scores. It's all over the place. There's people giving it half stars, people giving it 5 stars. It's like
Yeah.
it's really weird. It has a big following, and I really do not understand how.
Mm. Maybe it's just the case of like, it's so bad, it's good.
I think so.
No,
I
people
think
just
that is
love it.
kind of what it's going for. Because it is quite similar in a way to the Rocky Horror Picture Show and how it's like meant to be like really cheesy and over the top. But
Yeah.
that film's like actually good and has good music in it.
It's definitely trying to have like a sort of parody element to it. Maybe people just think that that's what they're going for and they love it for that, but it only goes so far and it doesn't really.
I just think it tried
elevate it.
way too hard. Like, there's a bit of like, even if a film like, I've never seen Rocky Horror Show, but from the way you're describing it, there's still a bit of class to the movie. It's not like they're throwing everything at the fucking wall and hoping it sticks, like, sort of thing.
I don't know. It's a film about transvestite aliens from the planet Transsexual. So
That is not what I expected that movie to be about.
yeah, it's a film for another time.
Right, should we rate this out of Evanescence songs? I don't know.
Out of Repossessions.
Yeah, if you want to get basic, we'll go over.
Out of Mr. Tom's.
Do you know what? Let's all just have our own.
Out of Paris Hilton's.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good one. Unanimous vote, 2
Sure.
versus 1. Go on then, Chris. You start.
This film sucks. It does everything wrong that a musical can do, even as like a cheesy tongue-in-cheek sort of parody thing. It just doesn't work because A, it's not funny, B, the music just doesn't work, and C, the film's just ugly and obnoxious. I honestly think this is the worst film we've reviewed on the podcast. I
Wow.
honestly preferred Puppy Star Christmas.
I
That's
even forgot that we
nice.
reviewed that movie.
Big. Yeah. I'm going to give it 1 Saw 7 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah. Movie's not good. It's a terrible, terrible movie. But I think like Anthony Stewart Head was having a good time. I could get on board with some of the stupid, cheesy music, but like some of it, like sometimes I'll like listen to Zydrate Anatomy just on my own, just because I think it's like it's fine. I don't like I don't think it's a good song, but it's like kind of an ironic listen, I guess, even though it's like a guilty pleasure, I suppose. But other than that, it looks terrible. The music composition is horrendous, and no song kind of differentiates itself between the other songs because like characters are always singing, so it's just this big clump of characters singing you get out of it, and you're just like, wow, that was like just like a big like hit, and then it's done. It's a very short movie. It's an hour and a half, but I think you guys had to take a couple of breaks from it because you was having such a terrible time.
Yeah, I went and had a bath.
I guess just at the end of the day, I didn't have like that terrible a time with it where it's like I just really wanted to like pluck my eyes out, you know. But at the same time, I recognize that it's a terrible, terrible movie, and you probably shouldn't watch it unless you want to have a bad time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it doesn't really, it puts me off with any Darren Lynn Bousman movie ever. I'm probably not going to watch any of his other movies. I think, what did he direct, like Saw 3 or 2? I saw
did
those.
2, 3, 4, I think maybe he did 5 as well, and he's doing the new one that's about to come out.
Yeah, I think I've seen 2 and 3, but that was a long time ago. I don't really remember them. And I'm not really a big fan of Saw anyway. This is sort of like Saw with like the gore and everything, but it just, you know, it doesn't, it's just shit.
The Saw films are actually funny.
Yeah, and this, maybe it's like sometimes you can laugh at it, but it's quite painful at the end of the day. Yeah, 3 Paris Hiltons out of 10.
I'm going to keep this brief. We've never had a movie on the podcast where all 3 of us have spent half an hour slagging it off. So for that, it's going to get a 0. I'm not going to fucking rate it. It was an awful movie. Terrible. I'd never watch this again.
Yeah.
I'm a bit annoyed that you threw away Stay Alive as soon as that arrived, yet you've still got the DVD of this. I think this needs to join it in the bin.
Nah.
Each to their own.
There we go. Now I just need to recommend something to try and top Max for the worst reviewed film on the podcast.
Is that our worst reviewed movie so far?
Actually, I think Puppy Star Christmas still is. I think all of us gave it a 1.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I didn't expect anyone to get as close to me, in all honesty, but how the mighty have fallen, Max.
I've got something planned in a couple of weeks that could compete, so look forward to that.
We'll see. The porn version of E.T.? Because I've already watched it. 9 out of 10.
I'll think of something else.
Alright, so that brings us on to the last film, which was mine, Trial of the Chicago 7, which was based off true events. So essentially, it was in protest of a war, if I remember correctly. Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, just so I remember correctly, because there's so many wars, I just can't remember which one people protest. And it's like the head of these 3 organizations are planning a peaceful protest in Chicago, outside where an announcement's happening, I guess. And they get arrested and charged with a law which is essentially prosecuting them for crossing state borders with the intent to cause violence. And it's alleged throughout the film that it was the police that started the riots, but these guys end up going to prison, despite the fact that the acting state... I don't remember what the guy's position was, in all fairness. Chief of police, I want to say, admitted that it was the police that started the riot. And yeah, what do we think of it?
It's alright.
Yeah, I don't know. Seen this movie before. I just I thought it was fine when I watched it the first time, and this time I just just my enthusiasm for it kind of dropped off. I don't really care much about the story that's being told. I think like Aaron Sorkin, he's a good writer, but his direction is not that solid. It's like the kind of movie that you don't even have to like watch to understand what's happening. You can just like, if you were blind, you'd still understand what was going on in this movie. It's like there's no personality to the direction. I don't really like that. And just on top of it, I don't really care about like the trial or like what's like. I don't care about like the characters or just what's going on.
I think,
you know?
Max, where it's based on true events, right? If everything that was in this movie, or the large majority of it, is in the movie, that is true. Not caring about the characters is fine, but fuck me, what a shitty government and what a shitty state of law you have, where you are discrediting information from the person that conducted the investigation against the people you're prosecuting just because it's in favour of the people you are prosecuting. The judge was racist. Like, it's just, mate, honestly, this is a fucking another movie that makes me hate governments, right? Just fucking get rid of them.
The judge was very incompetent.
He was a fucking... There was
that
judges that, like, honestly said his behaviour was, well, not reckless, but uncondoned or not condoned. Because, like, people just be trying to make points. The guy's questioning a witness about, obviously, oh, if he offered you $100,000 to end it, do you think he's being serious? And he's like, yeah. He's like, well, you know, bribery or plagiarism is an actual thing. And the judge is like, move on, we're not talking about this. And it's like, no, he's making a point to discredit someone that is in favour of your own agenda. Like, mate, it's fucking awful. Like, this is exactly, and this happens in today's day and age, even still. It's just like, and fucking Trump was a maniac for this, just manipulating things to be in his own favour. Oh, mate, I'm fucking on it again. You've started me off. Fuck the governments.
Don't say Trump. Reid will appear.
No, it's not Trump. You say the Clinton kill list, and he got me.
I think this is a case of a film where the real life events are probably more interesting than the actual film. Like, I do think they're portrayed in like a very decent way. And I don't think the film's like particularly bad or anything. I do enjoy a lot of the film, like especially like the courtroom scenes. Those were probably the bits I enjoyed the most, like seeing the uprest and arguing. It's pretty entertaining. But like Max said, the characters just are really uninteresting. They don't really feel like real people, and it just like stops you really being able to invest into what is happening. Like, I had no emotional investment over the actual trial. The only bits that were really getting a reaction out of me was the incompetence of like the judge and stuff. Apart from that, I didn't really care at all.
And that's because he's like very over the top. You're like supposed to he's supposed to grind your gears, you know?
Was Borat in this movie?
Yeah.
Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah.
He was in it.
Yeah, I
his
tried to remember.
performance is so. It's kind of whatever.
I tried to remember his name, but I got Sacha.
He's the funny man. He's a funny man, and he's in the trial, and he's funny, and that's his character. And like his partner as well. Who did he play? Abby Hoffman, and then his partner was Jerry Rubin. There was such like comic relief characters, like especially Rubin, who I just didn't like at all. He was such a stereotyped hippie character.
Yeah,
I just really found his scenes grating.
The scene where they see Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the park, the lawyer, and he's like, "Oh, does she still talk about me? You can't do that to me." And I'm just like, "Yeah, that's a little bit like over the top. Not funny. It's trying too hard to be funny."
Abby Hoffman, played by Sacha Baron Cohen, he's like doing like a stand-up thing, like a speech throughout the movie. Like it keeps going back to it, like he's just delivering exposition. It's like, and here's what happened next, and then this happened, and this happened. I'm like, dude, like just why are you cutting back to this every 5 minutes? I don't care.
I got slightly confused when that started happening, because I was like, is he talking about what's happening now, giving exposition to the movie, or is this like supposed to be a flashback of what happened on one of the nights of the protest?
Yeah, we don't know. Is it happening before the trial, after the trial, during the trial. I don't know.
But I think
I don't know.
the thing with this movie is that it highlights yet again that governments are flawed, right? And that
Fine,
agendas.
but like, why is that not something that I could get out of like an essay?
You rate the movies,
or
please.
like an article.
You rate, you could do, but I just fucking hate that thing. Like, this stuff is like just common, and people get away with it, and no one gives a shit.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot about like the story that's being told that would probably connect with a lot of people. I think that a lot of people do love this movie, and I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm just saying that I understand what it's trying to communicate, and on some level, I guess I care about like what they're talking about. But it's like I care no more than I would in like a history lesson, you know?
I get what you mean.
It's like
you obviously care about the history, but the way it's delivered to you was a bit. It is essentially like being in a classroom. Like
it's very static.
Yeah, my history teacher was a cunt. Like, just made me hate it, which is why I never turned up to the exams. I really didn't care that I got a U.
I think I said in a previous episode about Steve McQueen's Small Axe series. There's a movie in there that's called Mangrove, and that sort of it shows like a trial people as well, and I thought that to be much more engaging.
Steve McQueen
in terms of like a court case about showing like oppressed individuals.
Oh, fuck me! I thought you meant Lightning McQueen from Cars.
No, completely different. One's a car, one's a person.
Honestly, I was sitting there thinking, what is there like a mini series where the cars go on trial for something?
If only. To be fair,
No.
Mangrove in a lot of ways is quite a similar film. Like, the reason why they're in court is like the exact same reason why these guys are in court, and there's a lot of like race politics and stuff, and obviously that film is also based on a true story. But that film does it a lot more in an entertaining way, and like he spends a lot of time developing the characters and stuff as well, so you invest more emotionally into the film. But with this, like you guys said, it just kind of feels like they're just throwing information about us rather than delivering like a entertaining movie. Like, it seems like they kind of forget about the fact it's a movie. But at the same time, there's a lot of like really cheesy stuff that they play up, and a lot of like big changes to the history that they made. And I think like the ending especially is quite corny. And
oh yeah, that was a horrible scene. I hated that so much. It's like a lot to do with like the music as well, which I really didn't like in this movie. It's like very like upbeat and exciting, like especially when it's like introducing the characters. It's like what they're saying is not like that interesting, or like who they're introducing. They're not interesting characters, but like the music playing, it's like and you're like, oh my god, this is so cool, but it's not. And then at the end, they're like, he's reading off like it's supposed to be this big triumphant moment where Eddie Redmayne gets up and he's announcing all the names of the soldiers who have died in the Vietnam War, and the music's like la 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 la, and I'm like, oh, I don't care. It's so boring and it's so cheesy and corny. It just annoys me.
That was a big thing that they changed, like, from what actually happened. Like, in reality, it wasn't Eddie Redmayne's character at all who did that. It happened right at the beginning of the trial, and the person who said it listed US troops who had been killed and also the name of Vietnamese people who had been killed. So the way they just kind of throw it to the end to get an emotional reaction just feels really, like, disingenuous in a way.
Well, it's like they want to like end on a high, and that's the only way they know how to do it. And then at the end, it's like, here's the rest of the stuff that also happened, and we're not going to show you it. We're just going to like put it on the screen and be like,
I mean,
and so died, and so did this, and so did that. It's just whatever.
I mean, like, if you're trying to, especially stuff that's based off true stories or true events in history, there's two ways you can go about doing it. One is make a movie, but the movie has to be entertaining enough because you're delivering, essentially, you're making this movie of true events to get it out to the public, so you want more people to know about it. I'd assume, else why would it be made? So it has to be entertaining. Like Chris said, there has to be some form of character development, so you're emotionally involved. Therefore, you care about the plot, so you'd care about the the act that the film is telling you about. Or you do a documentary where you can do it over a long period of time and you just give information after information after information, and it's more educational. I think this film tried to be a documentary and a movie where it was just tried to throw information at you so much. And like Chris is just, I didn't know that it had been changed like that. And yeah, like you said, it's a bit disingenuous, and it takes away from why you're trying to make the movie, to sort of bring this event in history to something that you said it was released last year, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking something that happened in like the 80s or 90s, or whenever the Vietnam War. It was fucking earlier than that, wasn't
60s.
it? Yeah, I was gonna say the Vietnam War didn't happen in the 80s or 90s. Trying to bring something like from the 60s, nearly like 80 years ahead. So there needs to be some consideration of either making it entertaining enough or emotionally connecting enough that people give a shit, or giving information in the correct way and not trying to just force it into an hour and a half. Like, this could have easily been like a 4-part series on Netflix. I mean, they have a fucking series about some guy who killed some cats and then killed someone. They have a documentary about fucking Madeleine McCann that just repeats the same shit over and over again. They could have done something. This could have easily been
Or it could
something
have just been
like that.
It could have just been like a 45-minute, hour-long documentary.
Yeah. And I'm also not insulting those two documentaries. It's awful that a guy killed animals and a person. And I'm not taking the piss out of Madeleine McCann. Just have to make myself clear. What I'm saying is the way that they were done is just awful.
I don't have a massive problem with them changing bits of history to make the film like more like theatrical. Like Rocket Man is a great biopic, and that does a really good job of balancing out reality and fiction in a way where you care about the characters and it's all very entertaining. Whereas this film, when they create fiction or change what actually happened, it's really confusing, because like it's so much of the film feels like they're just trying to recreate it verbatim without caring how theatrical and like entertaining it is.
Yeah. I went to like make lunch. I had to pause it and make lunch, like in the middle, and then I came back and I'd forgotten that I had been watching it. It was like a surprise to see it paused on the screen. I was like, oh fuck yeah, I was watching this movie. I just completely forgot about it, and that's like, that's the kind of thing. When you're done with this movie, nothing like is implanted into your mind. Like when nothing sticks, it's like there's no like, that was a great shot, or that was an interesting camera move, or that was a great piece of acting. It's like everything's fine, but it's not great. And like we're introduced to the Chicago 7, but some of them are barely touched upon. You got these 7 people, technically 8, and you maybe get to know like 4 of them, and it's just, all right, what happened to these other people then? Like, what? The movie doesn't even care about them. Like, it barely cares about the characters that it's got on screen anyway. But then, like, these other people are just pushed to the wayside, and it's like, this movie might as well have been called, like, The Trial of the Chicago 4, and then plus some other people also.
Yeah. Basically, the big name actors are the only characters in the film. Everyone else is just nothing.
I really liked Bobby Seale, played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. Like, he's like one of the best parts about this movie is like this black man who has nothing to do with these other people who've been protesting the war. And like, there's a great scene where he's like in jail because he's being charged with murder, which he didn't do. And then he finds out that his one of the leader of the Black Panthers in his the Chicago chapter has been shot by a policeman and died. And like, he looks at like Eddie Redmayne's character and he says, you're doing this, you're protesting this war to get back at like your daddy, your father, because you're like, this is like a fuck you, a middle finger to your dad. I'm doing this because I'm discriminated against and my people are dying. I was like, that's like a great moment in this movie.
Yeah, he was definitely one of the standout characters in this movie.
There was also a great scene where they're like, he's like cited with contempt of court because this judge is always handing out contempt of courts to people he doesn't like. And then they like, he doesn't have a lawyer because his lawyer is like at a hospital somewhere. and he's just trying to stand up for himself, and then he's taken to another room and he's gagged and bound, and then they bring him out and he's just the only person here who's just sat here, and it's like this black man who's tied to a chair with a gag in his mouth. It's like horrible to watch.
Not only that, but they beat him up, punched him in the stomach a few times.
Yeah.
I love the part where it's like all the lawyers like walk up to the stand, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, the lawyer, is like, just to quit his trial, and he's like, why? He's like, because the only man that is gagged, bound, or he says like, because in like in America, there's a guy on trial that is gagged and bound and tied to a chair. And then one of the other guys makes an implication that like the judge is being racist, and he's like, "Oh, are you trying to say that the decisions that I'm making are racially biased or something?" And they're like, "Yes, it is."
Because he's this old geezer.
Yeah.
Who wants things done his way.
The actor who
And
played
then,
the
like-
judge looked like a prick as well. Just saying.
And then they bring in Michael Keaton like an hour and a half into the movie, and he goes on the stand, and then the judge treats him very respectfully because he was like something to the president or whatever, and he's like, you gotta stop saying these things that I think you shouldn't say, but I'm gonna give you a warning, but please stop saying it. And it's like, you wouldn't have given that amount of courtesy to anyone else.
Well, he doesn't, does he? I like it when I think he's like the chief of defense or something, head of like the FBI or some shit. And they asked him a question about like what he talked about on the phone to the president, and the lawyer's like, "Oh, you can't say that because you can't disclose information with clients." And Michael Keaton's character is just like, "Oh, the president isn't a client," and the judge's face just sort of shits himself, and he's like, yeah, carry on then."
Yeah. And then like they're examining him. His name was like Ramsey Clark, I think, under voir dire, which is like the jury is not present, so they can't hear what they're saying, and the judge is just like, "We'll do a voir dire. If I think that anything that's been said is important, I'll get the jury back in to hear it." And like he says, he basically reveals that the police started the riots, and then the judge is like, nothing was said there that was very important. I don't think the jury needs to hear it.
It's because the lawyer said that was that was his investigation as like acting chief, but they're on trial for the current investigation from the current acting chief, and it's like, no, that's such a bullshit like BS way of explaining it. And the judge is like, no, and the guy's like, are we going to get the witnesses in or the jury to hear this? And he's like, no. And he's like, so you're just going to say no, that the guy who investigated it has just said that it wasn't these guys' faults, the seven that are on trial, it's not their fault, it's the police. And the judge is like, no. And at that point, he's just like, how can we win this? We've literally got the smoking gun here. The guy who investigated it has said it's not their fault, but the judge is like, nah, it definitely is.
He's like, the judge at that point, he's like in contempt of court himself. It's like he's impeding the justice system and like impeding the courts. And it's like, it's just, it's like, wow, you're an arsehole. You're like the worst person ever.
Yeah, I hope for the rest of that judge's life after that trial that every day he at least stubbed his toe once every 2 hours. I don't want him to die, because that's a little bit harsh, right? And I'll be the bigger man, but just fucking hurt yourself all the time.
He was basically forced to retire straight after.
Yeah,
well, at least
they found him like incompetent.
Yeah, a few years later or something.
Yeah, well, just not very good on the American government at that point in time, where other judges can condemn this judge and it takes a few years for him to be forced to retire. Think of how many other fucking cases he could have been racially biased towards, or all the misjudgments or prison sentences he's given people.
He had also like sequestered the jury as well, so like the jury were hidden from the public and the press. He's just like isolated, and like that's a way of only letting him hear what he wants them to hear. Just an arsehole.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything to add?
I don't have anything. No.
No, neither
I guess
do I.
I would say that the parts of this movie that I like is like how it tells the story, and that's not like somehow that's like it's a pro to the movie, but like it's also nothing that couldn't have been communicated in an article or in a history lesson or a short documentary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think that concludes it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll rate this one out of what were the sentences the judge was giving out?
Contempt of court.
Yeah, we'll give this out of contempts.
Nice. Yeah, this is an interesting movie. I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy it, because I did. I do think that Aaron Sorkin is a great writer, just not a very good director, and I don't really like the way he flipped a lot of the information without making the film emotionally entertaining enough for you to really get invested. I definitely think it's a very interesting story, and I would like to learn more about it just in maybe like a documentary film or series or something. I think it's been done a few times, like documentary films about it, because it's like quite a famous story, so do want to check them out. I'm going to give it 6 contempts out of 10.
Nice. Yeah. It was fine. It was such a slog to get through. I just didn't care about anything that was happening. I didn't care for the acting. I guess I cared about like some of like the story that was being told, I guess, but it was just, oh god, it was such a hard movie to get through, and it's like 2 hours long, over 2 hours long. I think it really says something that I went to make lunch and I got back and I forgot I was watching the movie. Just nothing sticks about this movie. I've watched this twice. I did not want to watch this movie twice. All it did was like reaffirm how indifferent I am to it. I'm gonna forget this movie in like after like this episode, honestly. Just really not up my alley. Not at all. I'm gonna give it 5 contempts out of 10.
You've heard what I've had to say about this movie if you've listened to this podcast, so I don't need to rehash the points that I've already made. I'll just go straight onto the rating, and I'll give it 7 contempts out of 10.
Nice.
So next
wonderful,
week, boys,
wonderful.
What's the
We've got
what are the recs? What we doing?
We got some recs.
I
What we
didn't hear
watching?
anything you said then, Max.
What are the recommendations?
Nice. So, I have talked about the director David Lynch a few times because he's my favourite director, but I've not picked any of his films before. So I thought, let's just jump in and pick what is quite possibly my favourite film by him. And I'm going to pick the film Mulholland Drive.
Nice. Mulholland Drive. Okay. Wonderful. My recommendation, I've been trying to get into a lot of like medieval movies recently because I just like that era, and especially when it's told in film, you get some awesome battle sequences that I just, when they're done right, glorious to behold. So I got a couple of Blu-rays the other day. I watched like Macbeth as well the other day, which was visually striking but quite boring. But the other Blu-ray that I got was a 1995 movie directed by Mel Gibson called Braveheart, and that is what I shall recommend.
Oh my god! Literally, when you said I've been trying to get into medieval movies, I instantly thought Braveheart.
Ooh. Yeah, I've not seen it.
It's been one I've been meaning to watch for years, but never watched it. So
the only scene I know from Braveheart is that the one where he goes, "Give us freedom" or "Give us something else" or some shit.
yeah,
Blueface.
that's the only bit I
Something
know.
about freedom or something else.
Yeah.
I'm sure more happens in it.
Yeah. You can also apparently you can see a plane in the background of that movie.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
Like there's a shot in the first Lord of the Rings film where you can see a car in the background.
Why don't they just use that to get there? You know, I've been like just trying to recommend films that you guys may have seen already, but you have said good things about. So I kind of want to sort of know what you're watching. So I remember you guys talking about a film called The Arrival with the girl from Superman and Jeremy Renner in it, right?
Arrival, yeah.
Yeah, pretty sure you both said it was good.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never seen it. So I saw that it was on Netflix the other day. So I was like, do you know what? we'll watch it. I'll recommend that.
Nice.
So, mine
Arrival,
is
2016.
The Arrival.
Denis Villeneuve. It's called Arrival.
Arrival.
Denis Villeneuve, my favourite director. Wonderful.
Who's it by?
Wow.
Denis Villeneuve.
Okay, cool.
So we got a film
Wonderful.
from my favourite director, a film from Max's favourite director.
And Braveheart.
Yeah.
And Mel Gibson is actually my favourite actor, so
Are you
Well,
a
there we
fan
go.
of all his racist comments?
yeah, I am. I fully support Mel Gibson. I'm doing
Nice.
parentheses on that as well. Clearly I don't. But, there's probably going to be some dickhead that listens to this in the future that just is like, oh, being serious.
Cancel him. Cancel him now.
Cancel him. He said he agreed with Mel Gibson and he was laughing while saying it. He must be racist. Nah. Further
We
from it.
have, just before we finish this up, we also have social media accounts for the Sunday Movie Marathon podcast. Twitter is at Sunday Movie Pod, all lowercase. Facebook, all lowercase as well, at Sunday Movie Marathon. Letterboxd is capital S for Sunday, Sunday MM, capital MM. And now we also have a very brand new YouTube channel. It's just the Sunday Movie Marathon. Go give us a follow. Go subscribe. Do some stuff. Thanks for listening.
I love how much Max tries. It's amazing. The only 4 people that listen to this
Please.
podcast are the ones that already follow it. But Max, fucking A for effort. I love it. You plugged that shit.
I plugged it. Go out there and do it.
Yeah. You've set your seed, now let it grow.
Wonderful.
Thanks for listening
Thank
to this
you so much.
surprisingly longer than expected episode of the Sunday Movie Marathon podcast.